Hi, this is Thoraya. This is our second lesson about how to learn vocabulary. Lesson 2 is about word meaning strategies. Here are the points we are going to try to cover together. We'll first try to answer this question together. Why do we need strategies while learning vocabulary? And then we'll go through some strategies like mapping, contextual redefinition, enumeration, visual representation, to end up with a few examples of vocabulary games. Why do you think we need strategies while learning vocabulary? In the first lesson, actually, we talked about word meaning and how to try to figure out the meaning of a word from its context, how to try to approach the meaning of the word, how to find the meaning of the word. Do you think that was enough for you to learn the words? The answer actually is no, because research has shown that for a learner to learn a word, he needs to see the word many times as possible, in different contexts, in different situations, so that he can say, I've learned that word. The strategies we are trying to present today are going to try to help you, in a way, reinforce those word approaching or meaning approaching strategies, try to keep the words in mind, try to remember those words for later use. The first strategy is mapping. It's not a new strategy to you, I think, because it's a very familiar and very common strategy used by students everywhere. You might have used it in other subjects or related to other topics, but for vocabulary, it is very, very helpful. Why? Because maps are a very straightforward form of visual learning. Students can create their own maps. You can create your own map, I can create mine. They might be different, but the concept is the same, the strategy is the same. Here is one example of a vocabulary map. In the center of the map, you write your word, your new word, the word you've learned recently. On the top left side, you write your definition of the word, or if you know any synonym, any other word with a similar meaning, note it down there. Opposing that, on the top right side, you write an antonym of the word, a word contrasting with the meaning of that word. Down at the bottom of the page, on the left side, draw a picture that relates the word to yourself, to your personal experience, to your vocabulary background, to your life background, to your thinking background. Any picture here fits if it helps you remember the word, if it has some kind of connection to the word. The picture you drew might be different from the picture I drew, but my picture will remind me of the word, yours will remind you of the word. And then you need to use the word in a sentence and write your sentence here at the bottom of the page on the right. Why should you write the word in a sentence? It takes us back to the matter of context. If you use the word in context, you will remember it better. Another kind or another example of maps in vocabulary is called concept maps. You use that kind of maps when the word represents a concept. It's either called a concept map or a definition word map form. Again, in the center here, you write the word. Then at the top What is it? You try to define it. On the left side, or sorry, on the right side, you may have noticed here we have 4 boxes. They can be more, they can be less, according to the concept you are dealing with. In those boxes, you need to write some descriptions of the word or of the concept. What is it like? And then at the bottom, you write some examples. The boxes may be more or less than 4. Again, it depends on the kind of word you are dealing with. Vocab Trees is a third example, again showing mapping. And it's a basic strategy for increasing vocabulary in specific subject areas. To create a vocabulary tree, put the subject at the center of a piece of paper, and around the central subject, put the principal areas relating to the subject. For example, verbs, descriptive adjectives, where that word is found or that thing can be found. And in each of these categories, write the appropriate vocabulary. If you need to, write subcategories. The more subcategories you write, the more comprehensive your knowledge of the word is, and therefore the more effectively you'll be able to use it. Here is an example of a vocab tree. In the center of the paper you have the word the city. This is the target word. Here we have different words or categories that can be found in the city and that have a certain relation. Remember what we said in lesson 1, sense relations to the word city. So in the city there are shops, there are buildings, there are means of transport, and there are people. Here are some subcategories. Shops like what? Like butchers, bakers, grocers, supermarket, department stores, etc. Any subcategories related to the word shops will remind you of the meaning of the word city, because you have already set in your mind that the shops are a part of the city. They are found in the city. Another category related to the city is the buildings. The subcategories of buildings may be hospital, library, city hall, skyscrapers, police station, etc., etc. Means of transport. You can list down all the means of transport that can come to your mind and that are related to the city, that can be found in the city. The bus, subway, taxi, tram. And for people as well, you may list down the jobs related to the city, like banker, shopkeeper, a taxi driver, a librarian, pedestrians, etc. Now we pass to the second type of strategy, which is very effective: contextual redefinition. What is contextual redefinition? Now let's try to use our vocab strategies in order to approach the meaning of contextual redefinition. Contextual reminds us of the word context. So it's a redefinition. We are going to try to redefine the word using the context in which the word occurs. Contextual redefinition offers students specific steps for deducing the meaning of unknown, unclear, unfamiliar words in a reading passage by seeking clues from their context in a larger text or selection. This strategy encourages you as a student, as a learner, to focus on what's clear and obvious in a reading selection. Remember, we try to approach the unfamiliar through the use of the familiar, the unclear through the use of the clear, the unknown through the use of what is known, what we have, what we already know. The strategy also encourages you to use these observations that we've been talking about, observations in the context of the word, to help interpret unclear terms and ideas within the known concept or context. Additionally, contextual redefinition calls for close attention to word order, grammar, ideas, examples, any kind of key that helps you predict the word meaning. Have a look at this table. This is some kind of a tool that helps you redefine the words. Now, this table is made up of 5 columns. In column 1, you can list the words that are new to you, the words that you come across in a reading selection, for example. In column 2, you may rate the word. We have 3 kinds of ratings. 0, when you don't know the word, you've never heard the word, you've never come across this word. 1, I've heard the word, but I'm not sure of the meaning. 2, I know that word and I use it actually. Why do we need that column? It's actually helpful to restrict the list, to limit the list to the really unclear words, the really unfamiliar words or the new words to you. So your contextual redefinition process will take less time if you just focus on the words that you're not sure of their meaning or you've never heard them. Third column, you need to predict the meaning based on the context, based on the known facts we have or the known words around the target word. And you write your predicted meaning here without looking it up in a dictionary, without checking or resorting to any kind of help. Just the help that is available to you within the reading selection, within the context around the word. Fourth column, context clues. Now, what do we need to do? You go to the reading selection, you read and depict any context clues that you find helpful for approaching the meaning of the word. List them down here. Once you finish your reading and listing down your context clues, proceeding with your context clues, write down in the last column the meaning or the definition that you've come out with after reading and after all this process. The last column represents the redefinition. Now, when you select keywords from your reading selection and you write what you believe the words mean, you are using your prior knowledge. When you read the selection, noting the specific sentences in which each of the word appears, you are helping your mind with the process of determining the word, figuring out the meaning of the word, analyzing context clues. And when you finish, you place a check if your definition remains the same, and then you're so happy that you got it right. And let me tell you that most frequently, you'll get it right if you go through the process appropriately. And if your definition has changed, write in the correct definition. Remember to list any context clues that have helped you understand the word. Strategy number 3 is enumeration. Remember, in lesson 1, we talked about sense relations between words. And another sense relation is that of general and specific meaning. For example, we can say clothes and explain this by enumerating or listing various items under this category. furniture, vegetable. These are two other categories. So word sorting or enumeration is a good strategy for this kind of relation between words. Take a list of vocabulary words from a reading selection and sort them into various categories. Even if no reading comprehension question asks you to do so, you are doing this strategy in order to help yourself remember either the category word, the general word, or any specific or particular word in this series or in this under this category. Sorting words is a strategy used to reinforce new vocabulary or new concepts. Conducting word sorts exposes you to language, interacts with it, or lets you interact with it. Think critically about it. When you check whether a word fits under this category or not, whether a word has common features with the other words in the list or not, this is a kind of critical thinking. And it also helps you develop your ability to make deep, meaningful connections between words, between concepts, and later on between ideas related to those words and concepts. This kind of strategy can be practiced in group. So with a group of your friends, your brothers, sisters, you can take or use help from anybody around you. It can be a closed word sort or an open word sort. For a closed word sort, provide yourself and your friends with the categories into which you will sort the vocabulary words. For an open word sort, you can suggest categories for organizing the words that you have found or come across in the reading selection. Allow yourself 10 to 15 minutes to assign the words to the appropriate categories. Conduct a discussion with your friends presenting their word list for one of the categories. Require the students, the friends, the learners to define their sorting of terms by asking about the common features of categories and how each specific word meets these criteria. This discussion is very important because, as we said previously, it enhances critical thinking, and once you take the words into your thinking area, you're helping to reinforce them and you're moving them to your long-term memory. One more strategy, which is very familiar, visual representations. You will draw or create a sketch to represent the meaning of your vocabulary word. You can work with a partner if needed, or individually if you want to, and show the meaning of the word through a visual representation. What's important here is the association of the verbal with the visual. This is very important for the memory, especially if you are the kind of a visual learner. By visually representing information and relationships, you convey your understanding of concepts. And by associating familiar images, you are going to draw an image that you already know, an image that's familiar for you, but you are going to link it to an unfamiliar word. By doing this association, you, as an English language learner, reinforce critical vocabulary skills. One very famous example of visual representations is the graphic organizer or different graphic organizers that help you demonstrate your understanding and tap into your learning strengths. You can use graphic organizers to evaluate and analyze information and convey your understanding of how your information is interconnected. visual processes provide scaffolding that increases motivation and interest, which is very important for you as a learner, especially if you come across very difficult words or conceptual meanings that are hard to understand, hard to keep in mind, and therefore you feel it's boring and you just leave them away. So in order to reignite your motivation to learn, in order to reignite your interest in learning, try to use some visual processes. This improves comprehension and also fosters higher level abstract and critical thinking again. So you see, visual representations foster the high order thinking skills, which are really needed for you as a learner. We'll take some examples of graphic organizers, or probably a very famous example as well is the Freya model, where the target word comes in the center. The paper is divided into, or the page is divided into 4 boxes. One box is for the definition, but take care, it's a definition in your own words, not the dictionary definition. And then try to list down any characteristics of the word, of the concept, any descriptions related to the word. In the third box, you put some examples from your own life. Why do we say examples from our own life? Because, again, we are linking the unfamiliar to the familiar. Again, we are reinforcing the meaning and moving it to our long-term memory. And the fourth box may seem strange, but it's very important. You will put non-examples from your own life. What do you mean by that? Words that do not fit as synonyms or as connections to this word. It is learning by contrasting the word to its antonyms, contrasting the word to its opposites, let's say. This graphic organizer helps students to learn new vocabulary by not only defining the term in their own words, but contextualizing it through authentic examples and visual representations. And here is an artistic example of the Freya model. So as you can see, the word is in the middle, the center of the page. Here are the 4 boxes with different visual representations, so vividly colored to attract you, to keep your interest and your motivation ignited. One more organizer or visual representation is the KIM chart. K for key idea, I for information, and M for memory clue. And here are a few examples. For the word drought, for example, the information you can deduce from the context or the information you know about this key word is little or no rain over a period of time. Think about a memory clue that will help you remember the meaning of this word. And the memory clue can be anything that helps you remember. It can be different from one person to another. Word walls is our last example of organizers or visual representations. And this picture shows you a personal word wall that's easy to make using file folders. Anybody can do that, and they are there in front of you all the time, so you can remember the words, and they are categorized in front of you. The last strategy is vocabulary games. Games provide active participation to increase students' vocabulary retention. And they help you review the words. They help you learn to use the words in context and in everyday situations. This is why games are very effective in helping you remember the meaning of the words. Here are a few examples of vocabulary games. The vocabulary taboo, which is based on the words that shouldn't be said. So one target word, we need to give descriptions, and avoiding the very familiar words, trying to make it a little bit challenging by avoiding the familiar words and thinking of other descriptions for the words. Can be played by you individually or by a group. Another game is guess that word. It's very easy, very simple. Anybody can play it, even children can do, but it's very effective because you take the word in context and you try to guess its meaning, and there's somebody else, a partner, who checks whether your guessing is right or wrong, limited by time, and you can make it as challenging as possible for you. Synonym Game is another game that you can play. Again, it should be played with partners, either in pairs or with a group of your friends, and one of you gives the synonyms and gives the word, and the others try to find a list of synonyms that can fit. The more synonyms you give is the better, of course. Finally, whatever the reason, expanding your vocabulary is within everyone's reach, and I think that's what the strategies have shown you. Strategies for increasing your vocabulary are numerous. The ones I've mentioned are not all the strategies, just a few of them. But what should be noted here, however, is that we only remember a fraction of what we read, 30% of what we hear, 40% of what we see, and 60% of what we actually perform, what we actually do. Therefore, we need to interact with the words we've learned so as to remember them. We need to combine all types of activities to obtain maximum learning. Thank you for your attention. That's the end of lesson 2. I hope you can benefit from those strategies and use a combination of them. See you next lesson.